Think about the last person who truly hooked you. Not the one who felt easy, the one who made your stomach drop. Now be brutally honest about how they actually behaved. Did they stay warm, consistent, available? Or did they go quiet right after intimacy? Pull away the moment you got close. Leave you replaying old messages, looking for the version of them who seemed to want you. Here is the detail you may have never stopped to examine. You did not fall for them in spite of the distance. You fell for the distance itself. Somewhere along the way, you built a story about why this keeps happening. It's bad luck, bad timing, the dating pool, the universe testing you. Or maybe, if you're honest, you've wondered whether you're too much or not enough or somehow both. None of that is true. What is true is that you are not attracting people by accident. You are broadcasting a signal you cannot hear, and it is not coming from your wishes, your vision boards, or the list of qualities you swear you want in a partner. It is coming from somewhere much deeper, and it has been running for years without your permission. Because when you were small, long before you could name it, your nervous system learned what love was supposed to feel like. It didn't learn from books or movies. It learned from the people who held you, or didn't, from the warmth that came easily, and the warmth that had to be earned. And whatever that felt like became your definition of familiar. Here is the painful part most people never realize. Your mind does not chase what is good for you. It chases what is familiar. And those two things are often completely different people. An emotionally unavailable person does not feel like a red flag to your system. They feel like home. The anxiety they create feels like passion. The uncertainty feels like depth. The chase feels like the love you never got to finish, so your brain keeps trying to finish it. This time with someone who looks like they could finally complete the story. That is why you can list a dozen reasons someone is wrong for you and still not be able to leave. Your logic is clear. Your nervous system is louder. Look at what you actually do in the gaps between their messages. You check your phone without deciding to. You reread old conversations, hunting for a tone that has disappeared. You rehearse what you'll say if they finally reach out. Wait, psychology has a name for that cluster of behaviors, and it is not love. It is protest behavior, the frantic, unconscious signaling of a system that believes connection is slipping away, doing anything to pull it back. The problem is that your nervous system is trying to solve an old wound with a brand new person, and the person on the other end can feel exactly how desperate that signal is. They just can't tell you. You have probably spent more time with the fantasy version of this person than with the real one. The real one is unpredictable. The real one disappears. The real one makes you feel small in moments you will never admit out loud. But the imagined one, the one you talk to in your head, the one you picture years from now, the one who finally softens and chooses you, that version is perfect. And you are in a relationship with that version. It is one of the most powerful traps the mind can build, because it lets you feel deeply connected to someone who is not actually there. The fantasy asks nothing of you. That is precisely why it feels so safe, and that is precisely why it is so dangerous. So here is the question that separates everything. Were you in love with them, or were you addicted to the hope they represented? Because hope works exactly like a drug. It spikes. It crashes. It demands another dose. Every warm text, every good moment, every small sign that they might finally be coming around, that is the dose. And every silence, every cold reply, every time they choose something else or nothing, that is the withdrawal. The reason you keep going back is not that they are your person. It is that your brain has learned to feel alive only in the space between hope and pain. And before the weight of that settles, hear this. None of it's your fault, and all of it is yours to change. The pattern was never chosen. It was installed, a survival strategy from a time when you needed love to feel a certain way in order to feel safe. Your system has been repeating that old strategy ever since, even though the original danger is long gone. Recognizing it is not a verdict, it is a door. The people who break this cycle are not the ones who never felt the pull. They are the ones who finally stopped calling it fate and started calling it what it is, a pattern with a beginning, a middle, and, if they want it, an end. But there is one piece of this pattern you have probably never examined, because it sits on the other side of the equation. You have spent so long asking why you chase the ones who pull away that you have never asked the deeper question. Why do they pull away at all? What happens inside a person the moment closeness becomes real that makes them from exactly what you are offering? Because here is what nobody tells you. They are not running from you. They are running from something that has been chasing them their whole life. And until you understand that, you will keep standing in the same doorway, waiting for a person who is fighting a war you cannot see. That is where the real answer lives. And that is where we go next. You know the sequence. It starts with the best weeks of your life. The connection feels effortless. They say things that make you believe you've finally met someone different. Then one ordinary Tuesday, something shifts. The messages slow down. The warmth disappears behind a screen. And when you ask what's wrong, you get the sentence you've heard before: I need space. Nothing is wrong. I just need space. In that moment, most people make the same mistake. They read the withdrawal as a verdict about themselves. They think, I moved too fast. I said too much. I cared too deeply and it scared them off. Somewhere in the quiet, they start negotiating with a ghost, promising to be smaller, calmer, less needing, in exchange for the warmth returning. That negotiation never works. Because the person on the other side is not withdrawing from you. They are withdrawing from the feeling you just created inside them. And that feeling scares them more than losing you ever could. Here is what is actually happening in the seconds after a moment of real closeness. Their heart warms. For once, they feel seen. And then an alarm goes off somewhere deep in their nervous system. A quiet, ancient voice that whispers, this is dangerous. You are going to be seen now. You are going to be needed now. You are going to be left now. So their brain does what it learned to do long before you arrived. It reaches for the emergency exit, not because the exit leads somewhere better, because it leads somewhere familiar. Because in their earliest experiences, the people who should have been safe were the ones who eventually, disappointed, disappeared, or demanded more than a small child could give. Their system concluded that closeness and safety cannot exist at the same time. So it built a shield, and the moment you get close enough to touch the shield, they run behind it. The coldness that follows is rarely cruelty. It is a shut-off switch. A collection of unconscious maneuvers designed to kill their own feelings before the feelings can hurt them. Watch closely and you will see the pattern. They start noticing small flaws in you that never bothered them before. They start comparing you silently to someone imaginary, someone easier. They suddenly become obsessed with their freedom, their independence, their need to find themselves. They tell you they care, but they need to be alone right now. Every one of those moves has the same hidden purpose. They are not pushing you away because they don't want you. They are pushing you away because wanting you is precisely the problem. There are two different people hiding behind that same behavior, and the difference matters more than you think. One is the dismissive avoidant. Their withdrawal is a shutdown. When closeness triggers their alarm, they don't just step back. They go numb. The feelings are cut off at the source. They can walk away from a real connection and genuinely feel nothing for weeks, then wonder later why they feel empty. The other is the fearful avoidant. Their withdrawal is a panic. They want closeness more than almost anyone, and the second they get it, the terror hits. So they run toward you, then run away, then run back, trapped in a loop of wanting and fearing the very same thing. From the outside, both look identical. The cold text, the disappeared warmth, the sudden silence. But one is shutting the door to survive, and the other is slamming it while desperately hoping you'll knock. That is why their behavior makes no sense when you read it as a normal person responding to love. It was never meant to make sense. It is a survival pattern, and survival patterns do not follow relationship logic. They follow fear logic. And fear logic says, the closer someone gets, the more they can hurt you. So the closeness itself becomes the trigger, and the person who loves them becomes the threat. Not because of anything you did. Because of what was done to them before you ever exist, at an age when they had no way to fight back except to learn how to not need anyone at all. Now you understand the engine behind every mixed signal you have ever received. The hot moments that made you feel chosen. The cold moments that made you feel invisible. The way they pull you in just far enough to feel wanted, then push you back just far enough to feel safe. It is not manipulation. It is two desperate needs fighting inside one person. The need for connection and the need for protection, neither of which can win. And here is the cruelest part of the trap. Your reaction to their push is what decides which need wins. When you chase the distance, your pursuit confirms the old fear. Closeness means pressure. Closeness means being needed. Closeness means being trapped. When you wait quietly, your stillness proves their shield was never necessary. But you cannot control that switch from the outside, and trying to will make you sound like the very thing they fear. So let the weight of this land where it belongs. Their withdrawal was never a report card on your worth. It is the sound of an old wound protecting itself with the only tool it ever had. You were standing in front of a wall that was built before you were born, and you mistook the wall for a rejection. The person behind it may genuinely want you. They may think about you constantly. They may even love you in the broken way their system allows. But wanting you and being safe with you are two different rooms in the same house, and they have been locked out of one of them for a very long time. Which leaves the question you have probably stopped asking because the silence became too heavy. When they finally do disappear, when the coldness wins and the distance becomes total, what is actually happening inside them? Because the silence you read as forgetting is rarely empty. And the story of what happens in that emptiness is the story of whether they ever come back at all. Everyone assumes the same thing. Once the contact stops, they move on. They feel nothing. They never think about you. They were never that attached anyway. So you sit with the silence and tell yourself the story that hurts the least. It meant nothing to them. But silence is not emptiness. In fact, the silence is where everything they could not feel while you were present finally starts to move. And the person you believe has forgotten you is often thinking about you more than they have in months. Here is something you were never told about their shutdown. It was never the absence of feeling. It was the management of feeling. When they went cold, they did not stop caring. They built a wall so their caring could not reach the surface, because the surface was where it could be hurt. But a wall does not destroy what it holds back. It only stores it. And the longer the wall stands, the more pressure builds behind it. While you were still there, that pressure had somewhere to go. Every interaction gave them a way to release it. A text to control, a distance to create, a reason to feel superior or safe. You were the pressure valve. And the day the contact stopped, the valve closed. For the first time, everything they suppressed had nowhere to escape. That is why no contact works in ways presence never could. While you were chasing, every chase confirmed their oldest fear, and every silence was a victory for their defenses. But your absence takes away the thing their system depended on. You cannot be the reason they run if you are not standing at the door. You cannot be the threat they need to escape if the room is already empty. So their alarm system, which had been screaming for years, suddenly has nothing to scream at. And in the quiet that follows, something strange and inevitable happens. The feelings they buried start to surface on their own. Not because you did something right. Because there is no longer a war to distract them from what is underneath. Most avoidance will tell you they never miss anyone. And most of them are telling the truth in the moment they say it. But the missing arrives like a tide, not like a knock. It shows up at 3 a.m, when the distractions are gone and the empty room starts to echo. It shows up in the middle of an ordinary task, when a memory of you slips through the wall they forgot to patch. It is not dramatic. It is not a movie moment. It is a slow leak. And the timing of what happens next has nothing to do with whether they loved you, and everything to do with how long their defenses can outlast their own heart. This is where the return cycle begins, and it is almost never what you imagined. They do not come back because you chased harder. They do not come back because you waited convincingly enough. They come back when two forces finally line up. The first is the pressure of their own unresolved feelings, which no longer have you to blame or distract from. The second is the small, terrifying realization that life without you is not the freedom they promised themselves it would be. It is quieter, it is safer, and it is lonelier than their system ever admitted. So they reach out, not with a grand confession, with a small, careful, deniable gesture, a message about something trivial, a memory they suddenly remembered, a question about your day, sent at an hour when they knew you might not answer, the breadcrumb, the midnight text, the how have you been? And here is the test that decides everything. What you do in that moment either breaks the cycle or feeds it. Because their reaching out is not a surrender, it is a probe. They are testing whether the old threat still exists. They are asking without asking whether closeness still means pressure, still means being needed, still means being trapped. If you respond with the stored-up hunger of every silent week, you confirm it. You hand them the exact evidence their fear needed, and within days they will be gone again, colder than before, certain now that leaving was right. But if you respond from a place that is warm, complete, and entirely unafraid of losing them, something disorganizes inside their system. You become the first person who was close to them and did not try to hold them, and that is a feeling their defenses have no script for. The tragedy of the return is that it rarely sticks. They come back, and the pattern comes back with them, because neither of you has changed the thing underneath. They return carrying the same wall, and you return carrying the same hunger, and the two of you circle each other until the wall goes up again. The return is not the ending you were waiting for. It is the proof that absence can move them, which means the only question left is not whether they will come back again. It is what has to change so that the comings back stops being a loop and becomes something that can actually survive contact with the real world. Because they have proven they can reach you, and you have proven you can wait. But neither of those things is a relationship. And until something shifts deeper, this is the shape of your story forever. They appear, they warm, they panic, they vanish, they return. The question is, who breaks the circle? What would actually change in 1 hour? If that hour were spent on the only person whose attachment pattern you have the power to rewrite, not them. Think about it. Every hour you have given them was spent trying to decode a person you can never fully reach, translating their silences, studying their moods, waiting for a version of them that may not exist. And in all that time, one person's patterns went completely unexamined. One person's fears, triggers, and unhealed places stayed untouched. One person kept repeating the same story, wondering why life kept handing it back. You have spent years trying to manifest a person. The hour that could actually change your life is the one you spend manifesting yourself. Because here is the truth the title of this video has been hiding in plain sight. Manifestation was never about getting the universe to hand you a person. The universe does not negotiate with longing. It responds to frequency, and your frequency has never been set by your wishes. It has been set by your attachment system. Every unmet need from long ago, every lesson that closeness means danger, every belief that love must be earned through suffering, all of it broadcasts from you constantly, louder than any intention you could ever set. That is why you can visualize the perfect relationship until your mind goes numb and still attract the same unavailable person with a different face. You are not failing at manifestation. You are being outvoted by a signal you have never once addressed. So take the hour, not for a ritual, not for a vision board, for the one thing no one ever told you to do. Turn your entire attention onto your own system, the way you have been turning it onto theirs for months. For 60 minutes, stop asking what they are feeling and ask what you are feeling. Stop decoding their distance and decode your own. When the silence comes, what does it do to your chest? When a message goes unanswered, what story does your mind build in the first 5 seconds? That story, that instant interpretation of being left, was written a very long time ago by someone smaller than you, in a moment when being left actually meant danger. And you have been letting that old voice narrate every relationship since. That is the circuit that has been running your love life. And circuits can be rewired, not by pretending the fear away, by finally looking at it directly for the first time and recognizing it for what it is. A child's survival strategy wearing an adult's disguise. Which brings you to the hardest part of the hour, and the part most people refuse. The grief. You have been treating the pain of this loss as an enemy to escape, a sickness to cure, a weakness to hide. It is none of those things. The pain after a breakup is the attachment system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Screaming that a bond has broken, a safe place has vanished, a story has ended. That scream is not a malfunction. It is evidence that you are capable of attachment, that you can love, that connection matters to you. The people who move through loss without pain are not healed. They are the ones who learn to never attach at all. If you rush past this grief, if you chase the next person before the grief is finished, we're not healing. You are escaping, and every escape drops you back into the same frequency, broadcasting the same need, attracting the same familiar wound with a different name. This is the difference between waiting and healing, and it is the difference between a life spent circling one person and a life that actually moves. Waiting is still a relationship with them. You are still oriented toward their timeline, their return, their next move. Your peace is hostage to a person who was never able to hold it. Healing is a relationship with yourself. It is the slow, unglamorous work of becoming someone whose worth does not depend on being chosen. Someone who can sit in silence without it meaning abandonment. Who can be alone without feeling invisible. Who can hear that old voice whisper danger and choose, calmly, to stay anyway? The strange thing about becoming that person is what happens around you, because your frequency changes. The broadcast changes. People who used to feel magnetic start to feel exhausting. The pull toward emotionally unavailable partners weakens, not because you suppressed it, but because your system no longer mistakes danger for home. And one day, maybe soon, they will come back. They almost always do. The message will arrive, the old pull will stir, and you will stand at the exact crossroads this entire story has been building toward. But this time the question will not be, will they stay or will they leave? The question will be, what would I choose? What would I tolerate? What would I accept? What would I reach for if I fully believed I was worth it? And in that moment, you will understand something you could not see from where you started. The person you spent all that time trying to manifest was never the goal. The goal was becoming someone who no longer needs anyone to leave in order to finally understand their own worth. The hour is yours. The only question is whether you will ever give it to the only person who has been waiting for it all along.